My father used to say that the quietest people in any room are either the most at peace or the most dangerous. I spent 67 years being the first one. It only took my stepson about 4 months to turn me into the second. I want to tell you what he did, not so you'll feel sorry for me, but so you understand what a man is capable of when he finally stops being polite about it. What he didn't know when he was dragging my recliner into a cold garage in November was that I had already made a phone call. One phone call. And that call was the beginning of the end of everything he thought he had. Welcome to Dark Dad's Revenge. I'm glad you found this place. If you've ever felt like the people closest to you were counting on you to stay quiet, this channel is for you. Drop a comment, hit that like button, and subscribe so you don't miss a single story. We put out new ones every week. Here, let me back up. My name is Gerald Mack. I'm 67 years old. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, or I did, in the house I bought in 1991 on Whitmore Glen Road, the one with the big red maple out front that drops leaves like it's angry at the lawn every October. I retired 3 years ago from 31 years working logistics management for a mid-size freight company. Nothing glamorous. I moved pallets of goods from one side of the country to the other on paper, and I was good at it. Outside of work, I coach recreational youth baseball every spring to 10-year-olds, mostly, who can't throw to first base yet but try so hard it makes your chest ache. I rebuild old carburetors in my spare time. I've got a '74 Ford F100 sitting in the corner of what used to be my garage. Keyword, used to be. I want to be honest with you about one thing before I go further. I am a man who trusts too easily. Always have been. I see the good in people before I look for anything else, and I hold on to that first impression longer than I probably should. My late wife, Carolyn, God rest her, used to call it my greatest gift and my only real weakness at the same time. She was right, as she was about most things. That blind spot is what made all of this possible. I need you to hold on to that, because it matters. I want to tell you about Carolyn first. We were married for 22 years. She had a son from her first marriage, Devin. He was 8 years old when I came into the picture, and I made a decision that first summer that I was going to love that boy like he was mine. No conditions attached. Not stepdad love. Dad love. Without question, without condition, without keeping score. I coached his little league team when he was 11. I drove him to college orientation in my truck with his dorm furniture packed in the bed and a box of Carolyn's cookies wedged between us. I paid for 2.5 years of that college before he decided school wasn't for him, and I didn't say a word about it except that I supported whatever he chose. That's the truth. I want you to understand something about that detail. I never held it over him. Not once in 12 years. Carolyn passed away 26 months ago. Ovarian cancer, fast and cruel, 5 months from diagnosis to the end. Devin was there at the hospital. He cried. I held him. We grieved together, and I genuinely believed that what we shared in that hospital waiting room on the 8th floor of University of Tennessee Medical Center was real. I thought it bound us. I thought we were family. I was wrong about that. I was so wrong. The first sign came on a Wednesday. November 14th, 8:17 in the morning. I remember the exact time because I had just poured my second cup of coffee and the morning news was on. Devin knocked on the door to my bedroom, the master bedroom, the room I had shared with his mother for over 2 decades, and he sat down on the edge of the bed, and he said, "Gerald, I've been thinking." He was 34 years old, living in my house rent-free since September, supposedly to help me through the grief and to save money to get back on his feet after his second divorce. He said he'd been thinking. He said the house was too big for just me. He said I didn't need all this space. He said, and I will never forget this as long as I am breathing, he said, it would make more sense for you to use the garage. I can set it up real nice. We could put in a little heater and everything. He said it like he was doing me a favor. He said it like he was concerned. Not concern, not kindness, strategy. That's what it was. I didn't know the full shape of it yet, but I felt something cold move through me that morning that had nothing to do with November. I said I'd think about it. I didn't argue. That's what I do. I think first, then I speak. He took my silence as agreement. Over the next 2 weeks, he moved my things, my recliner, my reading lamp, my box of Carolyn's books I hadn't been able to open yet, into the garage, piece by piece, like he was unpacking a storage unit in reverse. He called it downsizing. He said it to his friends on the phone. I heard him through the wall. Then December came, and I found out about the account. Stay with me, because this is where the thing becomes something else entirely. I had a retirement account, a 401k I'd been building since I was 32 years old. At retirement, it sat at $214,000. Not a fortune. A careful man's life savings. In the weeks after Carolyn died, I was not thinking clearly. That is the honest truth. I was barely sleeping, barely eating, going through motions. Devin had offered, gently, helpfully, to help me manage some paperwork. He said things were piling up. He said I needed to focus on healing. He had me sign some documents. I signed them. I am not proud of that. I am telling you so you understand how grief can hollow a person out until there's nothing left to guard what matters. On December 3rd, I logged into my financial account online, something I hadn't done in almost 2 months, and I sat at my little folding table in that cold garage and I stared at the screen for probably 4 full minutes without blinking. The account balance was $11,200. Gone. $194,000, moved in 3 separate transfers over 47 days, into an account I didn't recognize. My name was still on the account. Devin's name was on it too. I had not known that. I had not known that when I signed those papers in the fog of my grief. I put the laptop down. I went inside. I made dinner. I did not say a word. I want to tell you about a man named Phil Brasher. Phil lives 3 houses down from me on Whitmore Glen. He's 64, retired from the Knox County Sheriff's Department after 28 years. We drink coffee on his porch on Sunday mornings when the weather allows. When Carolyn got sick, Phil was the first person at my door with a casserole and a quiet look that said he understood something about losing people. He's one of the decent ones. You know the type, not loud about it, just steady. Phil doesn't talk much, but when he does, you listen. I walked to Phil's house that same evening, December 3rd, snow dusting the sidewalk, and I sat down across from him at his kitchen table and I told him everything. I showed him the numbers on my phone. Phil didn't say much. He looked at it for a long time. Then he looked at me and he said, "Gerald, you need to call an attorney tomorrow morning." Not next week. Tomorrow. He had a name already, a woman named Patricia Wall, an elder law attorney who had an office on Kingston Pike. Phil had seen situations like this before. He called them by a name I'd never used before in my own life. Financial elder abuse. That's what it was. That's what my stepson had done to me. If you've been listening for a while, do us one quick favor. Subscribe, it costs you nothing and it means everything to us. Hit that like button and drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one of them. I called Patricia Wall the next morning at 8:02 when her office opened. She had me in her office by noon. She was maybe 50, calm and precise the way certain professionals are, the kind where you can tell they've heard terrible things and they don't flinch from them anymore. She explained my options clearly. She explained what fraud looks like in the state of Tennessee under power of attorney law. She said the word restitution. She said the words criminal referral. She told me to do 3 things: say nothing to Devin, gather every document I could find, and be patient. She said the word patient like it was a prescription. I took it as one. Here's what followed, and I need you to pay attention to the order of it because the order is what made it work. Over the next 6 weeks, I found and scanned every document I had ever signed in the months after Carolyn's death. 41 pages total. Patricia's paralegal flagged 3 of them immediately, 2 documents with my signature that did not match my handwriting precisely, and 1 that had been dated retroactively. Patricia referred the case to a forensic accountant named Douglas Hart, who traced all 3 transfers within 10 days. He found that the money had moved into an LLC that Devon had formed in September, 2 months before Carolyn passed, 2 months before I ever signed a single page. This had been planned. Not opportunistic. Planned. That's her, that's Devon, I mean. That was always him. Waiting. Patricia filed a civil complaint on January 22. The forensic report went to the Knox County District Attorney's Office on February 4. The DA's office opened a criminal investigation on February 19. I was asked not to speak about it publicly, and I didn't. I sat in my garage, I worked on my truck, I coached baseball practice twice a week, and I waited. Patience is not passive. Patience is a choice you make every single day, and some days it costs you more than anger ever would. But rage would have warned him. Patience did not. On March 8, Devon Harlan was charged with financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult and 2 counts of fraud. He was taken into custody at the house on Whitmore Glen Road. In my driveway. By people who knew what they were doing. I watched from Phil's porch. The civil settlement came 11 weeks after that. A full recovery order for $191,000, $3,000 was gone in fees and couldn't be clawed back cleanly, but Patricia fought for everything else. The LLC was dissolved. The house, which Devon had also begun the paperwork to transfer partially into his name, something I only learned during discovery, a detail that still makes me sit still for a moment when I think about it, the house stayed mine. Every inch of it. Then I asked him to come to the house one last time. Devon showed up knowing what had happened, knowing what was coming, but still somehow expecting, I don't know what. Maybe forgiveness. Maybe that I would be soft one more time. He sat at the kitchen table, the same table where his mother used to make biscuits on Sunday mornings, and I sat across from him and I was quiet for a long moment. I didn't raise my voice. I had nothing left to protect, and nothing left to perform. He started to explain himself. I let him get about 4 sentences in. Then I put my hand flat on the table and I said, I don't need to hear it, Devon. I've already heard everything. He looked at me and I saw it happen, the exact moment when he understood that the man he had counted on being quiet was gone. That man had made exactly 1 phone call in December and then waited, and built, and let the system do what it was built to do. He understood that I had not been weak. I had been patient. Those are not the same thing. He left. I didn't watch him go. I moved my recliner back inside that evening. I put Carolyn's books on the shelf in the living room. I'm finally reading them, one by one, in the evenings. My F-100 sits in my garage again where it belongs. I coach baseball every Saturday in Phil and I still drink coffee on his porch on Sunday mornings. Some things, you don't let people take from you twice. Here's what I know now that I didn't know on that November morning when he sat on the edge of my bed and said he'd been thinking. A man who mistakes your kindness for weakness has made the last miscalculation he'll ever make around you. Devon knew my signature on every document he handed me. He never knew my spine. If you enjoyed this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being a part of Dark Dad's Revenge. I'll see you on the next one.